jo Sama.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Tonight we celebrate the 6th of the month. And the 6th of the month is when we remember the martyrdom of the Akal Takhat. Tonight we'll talk about our concept of martyrdom, because it's come up actually in the course of why do we celebrate on the 6th? What is the reasoning and the intention behind that celebration? Because June 6, 1984 was one of those tragic turning points in all of our lives. All of us who lived through it mark that point in our life and remember things that happened before 1984 and those things that happened after 1984. When the Akal Takhat was attacked by the Indian Army and thousands of Sikhs were brutally killed. So how is it that we can celebrate that day? Why isn't this a day of mourning instead? Why isn't it a day of political activism instead? We celebrate this day because this day is the celebration of the martyrdom of the Akal Takhat. The Akal Takhat being the seat of the immortal God. The Akal Takhat is our touchstone. The Akal Takhat is our guide. The Akal Takhat is what makes sense out of this temporal world for us. And on the 6th of the month of June 1984, the Akal Takhat gave itself in martyrdom. And we celebrate that martyrdom. We can't say that it was a tragedy, and we can't say that it was an accident. Because to call it a tragedy would mean to say that you believe that the armies of India are stronger than the whole radiance of the Akal Takhat. I don't believe that. We've seen through multiple empires that have risen and fallen that the Akal Takhat stands on its own. I don't believe there's an army in the world that could destroy the Akal Takhat. So for those bricks and mortars to become tumbling down, it means that the Akal Takhat gave itself in martyrdom. That this was in service to the Panth. And on the 6th of the month, we sit in gratitude of that service. When Guru Arjan Dev took martyrdom on the hot plate, it wasn't that he was outfoxed by the emperor. He could have paid the fine. The Sikhs were begging him to pay the fine so that he could be released. He knew that that martyrdom would be the turning point. The martyrdom of Guru Arjan Dev spawned Guru Har Gobind. And when Guru Tegh Bahadur was beheaded, he could have stopped that at any time. And at the very end, you remember this story. He was given the choice, just prove to us that you're a holy man. We don't really want to, just do a miracle, prove to us you're a holy man, and we'll stop this now. And he wouldn't do it. He said, the miracle is my faith. The miracle is my strength. So Guru Tegh Bahadur offered himself in martyrdom, which was the turning point in the Panth that brought in Guru Gobind Singh. So it's the Akal Takhat offered itself in martyrdom in your lifetime. These are these incredible events in Sikh history, and this happened in your lifetime. And for that reason, we celebrate on the 6th. Guru Gobind Singh writes and talks a lot about death. The concept of offering yourself in martyrdom is not new to us. And the concept of death in Sikhism is different than in other philosophies and in other thoughts. Guru Gobind Singh writes about Kal. And Kal is often interpreted as, in the English they call it death. Kal is death. And in fact it is, but it's a very simple translation of a very complicated concept. Because Kal is actually the passage of time that leads up to your death. That every person is born, the concept of Kal is that every person is born to die. And that you're born with a fixed date of your death, a fixed amount of pranas in your body. That's what Kal is. Kal is that passage of time. So the minute you're born, that clock starts ticking. That's what Kal is. And so Mahakal is that great death. It's the great passage. It's the concept that you are born with a certain amount of time on this earth. That's Mahakal. That is a powerful force. You are born with a certain amount of time. Now Guru Gobind Singh turned this 180 degrees. He said everybody's born to die. Shiva came and Shiva died. Indra came and Indra died. Everyone's born to die. So instead of being afraid of death, he said take the shelter of death. And what he meant by that was that he told his Sikhs that the date of their death was set, that their pranas, the number of the pranas in their body was set. Some will die at 12 days. Some will die at 12 years. Some will die at 72 years. And you come with that written already. And so he's saying this to his Sikhs, to come and fight with me in battle. Because the day of your death is already written. It might be today on this battlefield. But if it's not, you'll walk away from this. And if it is, you'll die falling off your horse. Because the day of your death is already written. So if you know that, if you believe that, if you really believe that, then how could you be afraid to go into battle? You can't. Because if it's not your day to die, you're not going to die. And if you run away from that battle, you'll be hit by the bus as you cross the street running in the other direction. Because that was your day to die. That's a very powerful concept. But being in the presence of Guru Gobind Singh, with his Shakti and his energy, he was able to convince his Sikhs of the reality of that. When they sat with him, they knew the reality of that. And when they went into battle, they knew that the enemy couldn't kill them. And so one Sikh could fight 125,000. Savalak. One Sikh, my Sikh can fight 125,000 the enemy, or my name is not Guru Gobind Singh, he said. Because they could not be killed unless it was their day to die. And then they couldn't, there's no bargain you can make to get even one more breath. In the Akal Ustat, he writes, Rasaval Chand, all the Ramas came and they died. All the Krishnas that landed on this earth, they all eventually passed away. All the gods and angels that came, they too were taken away. All the scholars and the intelligentsia were also destroyed. All those Indras, they all had to go. All those demons, they all became food for Kal. The Narsingha incarnation was killed by Kal. The great emperors were finished by the powerful hand of Kal. All those who have been on this earth have been won over by Kal. And all those who took his shelter were, however, completely protected. There is no other outlet except his shelter and his protection. Whether they are gods or demons or rich or poor, whether they are kings or whether they are ruling chiefs, there's no remedy other than to accept his refuge. All the living creatures that originate on this earth are tamed and killed by Kal. Without him, Akal Purakh, there is no other refuge. There's been much written in many volumes and recited in many incantations. All the rich and the poor have been cowed down by death. All the godlike holders of the people, Indra, Yamna, Vayu, Sheshna. They were all eventually trampled by the strong feet of Kal. Anyone who worships the holder of the sword taps him by a variety of methods. Meditate on the name of the Lord. Meditate on Kal, and he would have victories in all the world. The characteristics of such a person are unusual and very wholesomely holy. His form is rare, he is beyond comparison, he is unparalleled, and sins flee upon hearing the sounds and the presence of such qualities. Such a person has large and wide red eyes and can eradicate countless transmigrations. His aura and his luster and his brilliance far exceeds those of the moons and the sun, and he is granted salvation to an infinite number of living beings. Rasaval Chand, whatever the type and number of persons, they are all subordinate to death, to Kal. So if you believe this, and he goes on in the Akal Ustat for paragraph after paragraph, convincing you, displaying to you, revealing to you that your days are in the hands of the Akal Purakh. Because Akal is the only one that isn't subject to Kal. So if you believe that, then how could the tanks of an army take down the Akal Takhat? It's just not possible. It's a gift to our time. It's the salvation of our people. That Akal Takhat offered itself in martyrdom to awaken the people, to bring us together, to change this age. If you want to know about the politics of that time, read the books. But read more than one, because none of them tell you the truth. But as these ages pass, the reasons become less and less significant. And the event becomes more and more significant. That the Akal Takhat could offer itself in martyrdom and give us that example that no man on the planet could give us. So if you believe what Guru Gobind Singh says, that the date of your death is written, and you can't buy even one more breath, then that gives you this incredible gift. It gives you the gift of fearlessness. That is Nirbol. Because all fear rests in the source of the fear of your own death. All fear. And if you've ever been in a situation that has been tense, life-threatening, ugly, essential, it's the fear of death that comes through. It's the fear of death that makes the friend turn on friend. It's the fear of death that makes the man run away from his family. So all of our fears, if you trace it back far enough, all of our fears reside in the fear of our own death. It's all tangled up in our, the psychiatrist will tell you, it's tangled up in our parents and what happened in our youth and how our father didn't love us. But the essential part of it is that it's fear of our own death. So if you believe what Guru Gobind Singh tells you, and you seek shelter you seek the shelter in death, you ask all for protection, then that grants you that fearlessness, as it did his soldiers on the battlefield. I asked this earlier, we've been talking about how in the days of Guru Gobind Singh they had secret mantras that gave them that power to never be killed. And that's when he told me this. And I said, what are those secret mantras? And he says, you chant it every morning. Mahakal mantra. Kal Akal, Siddhi Akal, Siddhi Akal, Mahakal, Mahakal, Sattanam Akal. And I asked him, what was the difference between the one we do in the morning and the one we do when we do the Sukhasan? And he said, that's the same mantra, one's just a short one, but it's the same. But that is the Mahakal mantra. And that mantra which tunes you into that moment of your own death and the acceptance of and the trust that death not only takes your life, death protects you. Akal protects you because you won't go one day before you're supposed to go. So give it up and relax because it's going to happen the way it happens. So the other part of that is nirvair. If you aren't afraid of your death, you have no cause for revenge. Guru Gobind Singh himself set that example. After he lost his 4 beautiful sons, his mother and his father, and Mataji to the horrors of this empire. When Aurangzeb died, Guru Gobind Singh sat and had dialogue with his son, Bahadur Shah. Hotly contested whether or not they had a meeting of the minds or the Guru was just being political. Who cares? He sat in his presence and had dialogue with him. That's documented. The son of the man who brutally killed his Khalsa. That's the ultimate of nirvair. Because he knew that as ugly as Aurangzeb was, it was still all within the will of God. And it was all in the development of the Panth. So if you have no fear, you can have no revenge. And to purge these 2 things is simply to get to the root of your own death. And the Akal Takhat lays this example for us. It awakened us. It woke us up from some kind of a stupor that we had worked ourselves into since the days the British walked into India. Akal Takhat ended it on that day. That was the day of our sovereignty. That's the day that we knew that there was no government that was going to stand behind us. The day that we knew that we belonged not to America, not to India, but to the sovereign Khalsa spiritual nation. The one that has no boundaries, that has no land, but rests in our own spirit, in our own heart. And that's why we celebrate the 6th of the month. We mourn the 6th of the month. And as long as we remember this, and we pass it to our children, and we tell these stories, then these things will always be fresh in our hearts. And maybe we won't have to ask for that sacrifice again. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Hey